Hey y'all, I'm Brittany Kelly, and welcome to The Journey Within. In these 8 episodes, I take you through 8 women's journeys. Always remember, be kind, because everyone you meet is on a journey of their own.
Hey y'all, I'm here with a new friend of mine, Sabina Gadecki, and we are sitting here in her home. She is an actress and a model, and we are going to dive right into her story today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
For allowing me in your home.
No, this is nice. I like this. You're actually my first friend in my home.
Oh, no way.
Because I'm a newbie in Nashville, and it's really nice to have you guys here.
Oh, we're feeling super welcome. It's super cozy and just amazing to be here with you.
Thank you.
And just to have a new friend.
I know, so that's how I feel. I'm like, oh, well.
So you just
buddy in
moved here.
Yes.
You just got here. Let's just go all the way back to when you were born status. What's happened between being born and now? Give us the download. Give us your background.
Okay, let's see. My quick story. My mom and dad are from Poland. Polish is my first language. I was born and raised in a town called Chicopee in Massachusetts. I moved to New York when I was 18. I went to college there. I studied international business. I don't come from a wealthy family at all. My dreams have always been to be an actress my whole life. And my only fallback plan is me. I don't have mom and dad to take care of me or pay for my bills or anything. So that's why I studied international business. Not because they forced me to. I actually had a genuine interest in it. I hope I never have to use it. When I went into it, I was like, oh, this is a little boring. But
you probably kind of use it every day.
Kind of. Yeah. I feel like a little bit. Yeah, now. And then I lived in New York for 8 years, moved from New York to LA, and I've been in LA for 11. And now with COVID, the one blessing that came from it was everything became a self-tape. All auditions are self-tapes. So I am able to audition from my home, which the competition used to be you have to be in the room. You have to be in LA, and if you're not here, then they just assume out of sight, out of mind. And Tyler and I have been long distance because his dreams have been in Nashville, and so we've been long distance for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Which isn't easy. It's all we know, though. It's all we knew until we went into COVID, and then when we actually had each other all day, every day, I'm like, wow, being in a real relationship is pretty nice. Aww. So I'm glad that we haven't needed to go back. So yeah, I was able to move here, and now I'm continuing to do my acting, and being virtual is not criticized like it used to be. It's not oh, she's not here anymore, which is a good thing.
Oh, I love that.
I tried for that to be my fast forward version. Is that a good
one
from
perfect.
Childhood? I was like, what else? What else did I leave out?
That's great. And so Ty, what you refer to him as.
That's cute. Yes.
So y'all have known each other for 6 years, or y'all have known each other for longer? How did you meet? What does he do here? What brought him to Nashville? Where's your season of life?
We met at Stagecoach. And it's actually almost our 6-year anniversary with Stagecoach around the corner. So we met in 2016. I was not in a great place of trusting men when I met him. I just had been really hurt and put through a lot. And so I met him, and he was just really tatted. And he just looked like a bad boy. Uh-oh. He just has this beautiful smile, and he's just tatted and really hot. And so when he came over to me, he's like, where are you from? You look familiar. We were at the Pit. We were watching Dustin Lynch perform, and I didn't know that Tyler actually saw me on stage.
Oh,
and he saw me in the pit, and he came down and he started dancing next to me. So he's I don't even know how to flirt. I'm literally just repeated everything. So he said, okay, so what he said, he was up on the pit, and I was in the pit, he was up on the stage, and then he came down and strategically was dancing next to me, and my friends were like, that guy is so much fun. I'm like, oh, he's very handsome. And I was like, I think he looks like he's trouble. And then he comes over, he's like, you look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? I'm like,
wait.
And I'm like, what do I say?
He may have seen you on TV or something.
I don't know. I don't, well, it turns out he actually had, but I wasn't thinking that.
Was he a super fan of Sabina?
He actually had seen one of my, he actually told me later down the road that he had seen one of my films. He had seen actually Entourage on a date 6 months before we met. So he didn't know, didn't know, he was she looks, he really did, he actually meant it when he said, you look familiar. Yeah. But I just repeated what he said.
But he just had no idea you were the hot girl from Entourage.
I appreciate saying hot. I mean, I don't. He didn't know how he knew. Then anyways, I just repeated it back. I was like, you look familiar too. But I didn't mean it because I just didn't know what to say and I didn't know how to flirt. And then he's like, maybe we have the same friends on Instagram. Let's look. And you've been to the desert and there's no service.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I can't look it up. I'm like, all right, well, it's really nice to meet you. I'll see you later. And I actually sprinted away from him. He's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'll see you later. And I was like, I don't know. I just felt really drawn to him in a way that I had never felt with somebody, and he was a stranger, and I just was like, this, I don't know what this feeling is. This is trouble. And then the next day, because he had looked up my name on Instagram, he had DM'd me, and that's how we started talking. And our first date was, we just FaceTimed because he was living in Nashville and I was in LA, and we just FaceTimed for weeks, and then our first date, he just felt like home. There's something really warm, very warm about him. He's kind to everybody in the same way. He really doesn't care who's who. And there's just a really special gift of warmth that he has. And so we were engaged after a year. And that's my best friend.
Oh, I love that.
He's amazing. He's awesome. I can't wait for you to meet him.
I know. He sounds honestly so much like BK, my husband. He's the same way. We can walk into a room full of whatever, celebrities, if you will. And my husband's talking to the door guy, talking to the police officer standing in the corner. He's not laser focused like some people, in these networking situations are. But I love that. They literally sound the same. And we got engaged after, we'd known each other for a couple years. We got engaged after 3 months. We just knew. And cheesy as fuck, I know.
How long you been married now?
Almost 9 years. Yeah.
See, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
I ran away, but then I knew.
Yeah.
Then I knew.
So when y'all started talking, how long was that between, so you got engaged within the year, and then how long before you're moving to Nashville?
I ended up moving here, so 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
5 years of long distance, just because I feel we were both kind of on a similar trajectory in our careers where things were really starting to happen for us, and I started to work full time as an actress, and I feel he got his record deal. He ended up signing with Big Machine, and I feel we were in similar paths that I could never expect him to move for me, and I felt he felt the same. It was we've worked our entire lives for this opportunity, and as you know, being in the industry as well, you don't know if opportunities will ever come again, and when they're coming, you really need to take advantage of it. And so I didn't move right away, and it was hard, but it wasn't. It's kind of all we know, to be honest.
So you felt kind of lighthearted throughout that whole talking phase, and you didn't feel y'all struggled?
The part that I thought we might struggle is we got married in September 2019, and then COVID was March 2020, and we'd never lived together.
Yeah.
Fully lived together.
And now it's
and
right,
we were
hour,
just.
every day.
And there's a lot of things that I learned about myself. Well, he's very accountable, and if he puts something on the calendar, even if it's his to-do list, it's accomplished. If it's on his to-do list, it's 10 a.m. tomorrow, it's accomplished. Yeah. We have a shared calendar, and so I would be I don't feel like doing it today, and I'd put it on my calendar for tomorrow, and I'd just roll it over, and he was he's how come you're not accountable with yourself? Oh. He's you're accountable with people in your life, people you love. He's but you're not accountable with yourself. What is it? And I'm that's true. I think a lot of it for myself stems from I get a lot of anxiety with perfectionism. So for me, I avoid situations because I get so anxious by trying to tackle the situation. So it's maybe someone would think that it's laziness or not being accountable, but in fact, I just get very overwhelmed of I want this to be perfect, and then when I go to do the task, whether it's I don't even know, something I've been procrastinating for a while is doing my acting reel, something that I know is supremely important for my career, but the thought of sitting down and going through it and choosing the scenes is just it makes me sweat.
Yeah, I do that. But it's so funny though when you get married and when you're right in each other's space, I graduated college and went directly on the tour bus with 12 dudes and was married and 23, so it was a lot at one time, but it's your partner is a mirror. They hold up this reflection for you, and you're kind of oh, I knew that about myself, but I didn't know that you would see it that way, you know? And in talking about that, like, let's just dive into like mental health, because this is like what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I love this.
And, you know, what has been your experience with mental health? Like, when did you first learn about mental health? Did you know about that in your youth? Like, was it encouraged? Was it talked about?
I actually found out at an early age when I was a child. Actually, my mom's sister is bipolar, and has been, you know, but it was, I just remember when you were a kid, there was just this, like, it was really challenging for her to get the help she needed. And then there was definitely a stigma of getting help that you need, whatever the spectrum, whether it's bipolar, whether it's for your anxiety, whatever it is. I feel like there's always a stigma that comes with it that, like, this person's crazy. And she couldn't get the help that she needed. And I just remember being a kid and kind of feeling, as I became an adult and started to deal with my own anxieties and maybe seeking, like, oh, I have things that I'm trying to sort through and I should be in therapy, I felt like, I guess, a little bit shameful, because it had sort of been this association in my mind of this, like, childhood trauma of my aunt being bipolar and all the things, the crazy things she did. But she wasn't properly diagnosed for 4 years. Like, 4 years she wasn't on proper medicine. And 4 years she was just sort of, it really makes me sad, just like written off and dismissed as a human being who, like, needs help. And I actually don't even think I really realized that until this, like, moment of just like, this person needs help and they're trying to seek the help, and she couldn't get it.
So what you just said was a really good point, because I know growing up for me, there was such a stigma around mental health, because, you know, how I was seeing it, it was almost like mental health was associated with mental illness, you know, and, like, I know there were some kids around me getting therapy and they didn't even want to talk about it because it was, like, shameful, you know? So do you feel like that was somewhat of your experience?
As I started to get older and sort of deal with my own anxieties and stresses, and sort of had gone through just a painful period in my life, and I think I really hesitated to seek help. I wasn't sleeping. It's so funny. People are like, oh, I noticed you're up till 4 o'clock in the morning posting on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I'm having a really tough time sleeping. Just, you know, a lot of my friends knew kind of what I was going through at that time. But it was funny that, like, I never really took a step into, like, going into therapy. And then finally, when I had a friend come to me and she's like, you know, I've been doing this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's not intended for you to stay in it forever. It's intended to give you the tools to learn how to cope with your anxieties and your stresses. And she's like, you should give it a shot. And I, like, really appreciated that friend, because she saw that I was not the person I had been. She saw I was going through a difficult time, and I really applaud that friend for kind of stepping into my life, trying to help. I needed to make a change. Like, I obviously was up till 4 in the morning, and people would be like, I see you posting. It's so funny. You always post such funny things when you can't sleep. I'm like, I'm kind of going through something. You know what I mean? Like, it was just really, I really appreciate that friend for talking to me and sort of helping me. I wish I had got the help sooner, I suppose.
And how old were you when this went down?
30. So I was 30 the first time I ever went to therapy in my life.
And do you mind sharing what you were going through?
It was like, well, I feel like over the last I'd say the last 8 years of my life have been pretty challenging with my brother.
I'll hold some space for you.
So my brother, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is stage 4 brain cancer. It is terminal. They don't have a cure for it. It's hard. It's really hard, you know, especially, like, so talking about mental health, it's like, and maybe not growing up in a family that kind of talked about it, or maybe didn't know about it. It wasn't that my family didn't talk about it, but even though my mom's sister went through it, my family's going through a really hard time. My brother's a dad of 2. He's married for 14 years now. You know, and it affects your whole family. My mom's going through it, my dad's going through it, my brother's going through it. It's hard. You just want to be there to support. I can't possibly understand what he's going through. It's also really hard to talk about with people who don't know what the cancer is, people that aren't familiar with it. I think what's really challenging is I want to share his journey and I want to share his stories, and when he has a clear scan, and then there's people are like, oh my God, so he's cured. That's amazing. He's cancer-free. And it's hard to really talk about and have people understand the severity of this cancer. And then I've met this like amazing community, honestly, on Instagram of just people like sharing their stories with me.
Is this something you've talked to like a therapist about as well?
Yeah, so I'm like really thankful. Like my therapist is amazing, and we work through, and we meet it's funny too, like I'll meet with my therapist, and even if I'm on the road with Ty or wherever I may be, and I take out my computer and I put my earbuds in, and it's funny because a lot of people, I think, are a little surprised by my openness with it. Oh, gotta run, I have therapy right now. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh, that's cool. And then and it almost opens up the conversation of curiosity. Like, well, what is it that you do? And what kind of therapy? And I actually, I'm pretty open with it now, because I do think for so long that I was like kind of ashamed to talk about it. But even with my family, I'm like, I'm the only one in therapy right now, and I'm kind of trying to help my family get help for my nieces who are going through it. I mean, they're 6 and 10. They see it. They see my brother going through chemo, and the kind of treatment that you need for this cancer is very aggressive. He underwent 6 weeks of chemo and radiation every single day. Well, first he had brain surgery to remove the tumor, and then once the skull heals enough, then he underwent chemo and radiation for 6 weeks every single day, and then for the last year underwent chemo once a month every 21 days, maximized to maximum treatment for his body weight. It's really tough. Tough on the family, tough on and he can't drive anymore. He lost his peripheral vision on his left-hand side of both of his, so where his tumor was in the back right side, so his left side, he can't drive, so my dad brings him everywhere. And it's, my heart hurts for my brother, because he wants to go see friends, and then he gets this in the middle of COVID, so he can't, he's like extra secluded. It's quarantine, it's COVID, he's in the middle of cancer treatments, he cannot be exposed to anything, and he's pretty isolated and alone, and it's been hard. But I do think as a family, it takes you a minute to digest the information you have. And it's like,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and it's a lot to know, like, I mean, you're living your life like everything's fine. Then all of a sudden my brother has a seizure, and they identify he has this cancer, and you hope and pray that it's like, oh, maybe it's just a benign tumor that was pushing on a point of the brain that caused the seizure to happen. And then you learn that it's glioblastoma, and it's tough. It's tough because I have, this, like I said, people reach out on Instagram, which is very sweet, but this community that I've built of people who were diagnosed after my brother, that one of the bandmates from The Wanted, he was diagnosed 3 months after my brother. He just passed a few weeks ago, and it just like rocked my world. I'm like, whew. It's hard, but you also kind of, I feel like there's a lot to be thankful for, like we never know when we're going to lose the people we love. And I feel like I cherish every second I have. I'm with him. Like every second I'm with him that I can. And I feel really thankful for the time that we have, and how much we cherish it, and how special we make it, and how intentional we make it. Because I was living in California, I wasn't seeing him as much as I should have been. It just makes you really evaluate your life in a whole different way.
So if someone's watching and listening right now, and they're going through, something similar with that, someone who has cancer close to them, like would that be something that you would tell them is like, find community? Like what's like something they can grasp onto?
Yeah, that's a really great point to make. I think finding community, I think it took us as a family, it's been a year and a half since he was diagnosed, and I definitely think that we are now, as a family, feeling comfortable to find that community, because it takes you a minute to really be like, wait, this is a new world that I'm in, to find the camps for my nieces that have families that are going through it, and to find, we just started to go to a support group together, my whole family and I, which we just started last month. So I think that I wish we had done it sooner, but it's never too late, and I feel really thankful that we're doing it now. And I think for my brother, like, it's so important for him to have people that are understanding and going through what he's going through, because just for him to be able to have those conversations, I think it's been really important for him.
So shifting gears here a little bit, you know, I follow you on Instagram. You are one of the funniest people that I follow. Oh. I mean, I wanted to introduce you as a comic, to be honest.
Wow.
I mean,
I accept the compliment. Thank you.
Your videos of you singing and being so silly, and I love it. You're freaking female version of Jim Carrey or something.
And I just Jim Carrey.
And funny enough, I was just reading some of Jim Carrey's memoir, and you know, he went through a time in his life, you know, where he had a very sick mother, and he used comedy to distract himself from what was going on and distract his mother from what was going on. And you know, he did all those crazy faces and just the crazy stuff just to make her laugh. Do you feel like some of your comedy comes from just wanting to make people feel good and make people laugh? And
I do, and I actually really appreciate that question for a few reasons. One, I always thought about this so often. There's a quote by Robin Williams, and he said sometimes the saddest people try to make people the happiest because they know what that sadness can feel like. And I do feel like, you know, the last several years have been tough for a lot of different reasons, for my brother's cancer and obviously the thing we talked about before. But I think there's some truth in that. I feel like when I went through such deep pain like that, it has made me so wildly empathetic. I feel people on a level I've never felt before. I don't even know how to explain it. I just feel people's hearts sometimes in a way that's overwhelming to me, where sometimes I'm I don't know how to protect my energy because I'm drawn to this person and I see that they might be going through something. And I do think me being silly and goofy is a way to sometimes hide that I'm hurting. Yeah, I think so. It's just I think people do that. And it's funny you said that about Jim Carrey. I met him at a Halloween party about 4 years ago. And he was so kind. He was so kind, and we had a really impactful conversation. I don't even know why. Maybe he just maybe there was some weird, I say, the empathetic thing. I don't know what it was. We were standing there, we had this very brief conversation, and he said, you know, people just expect me to be funny all the time. And it's exhausting. It's funny you bring that up as an example, because this conversation really impacted me, and it I carry it with me. And he was just kind and sweet and normal, and really made an impression on my heart of just that he felt like he was a little sad, to be honest. I mean, obviously we're not pals, and we didn't have total heart-to-hearts, but I don't know why he felt the need to share that with me, and it did seem like he was a little sad. So yeah, I feel like sometimes I do hide that I'm hurting by being silly, I think, yeah.
And so, I mean, you're having conversations with Jim Carrey, you're an actress, you're in Hollywood, you're around all these celebrities, you're around all these people that, you know, the average person is that would be amazing, your life is a dream. And so it's almost you're living this parallel of you're on top of the world, or with people that are just on top of the world, but then you're also experiencing your own personal hell.
Yeah.
I mean, have you felt that pull of just I'm living my best life, but it's also some of the worst times, you know?
I think where I struggle, and I think a lot of people probably struggle with this, is how do you open up yourself to the world? I sometimes myself will see a post and it's like, all days are not good days, and so like someone posts like a picture of them crying, and then I can't help but sometimes be like, why'd you take a picture of yourself crying? Why are you posting this? And then I'm like, why am I being judgmental? Maybe that was posted with the utmost sincerity. And then I judge myself, because I'm like, well, how do I become more open and candid that my life isn't perfect? And yeah, sometimes I just fall into the trap of like, I'm going to post the fun things and the goofy things and the drinking things. And I feel like my dad sort of copes with his hurt and his pain with comedy too. My dad's like, I'm such like my dad's child. Like, he's just like goofy and silly and wild and fun. And like, he's really is the one that I feel like I get this like carefree goofiness from. But I do struggle with that, because I'm like, how do I share my story, or how do I share that I have painful days? I definitely feel like I struggle with that. I suppose the point of Instagram is to share our lives and our worlds, and I mean, everyone uses it for different things, but I feel like I use it to be able to connect with people, and especially have had my eyes open with everything going on with my brother, of just like what a beautiful community it really is. I mean, my girlfriend, you know Melissa. I like almost forgot for a second. So Melissa hosted a workout for my brother, and only 1,000 people could sign up for it with Eventbrite, and it maxed out at 1,000 people, all for my brother. And to like have a whole community of people all met through, so it's gonna make me emotional, all met through Instagram, and they don't know me and they don't know my family. They only know what I share, and to know that like 1,000 people came together to pray for my brother, to support him, to support his family. Yeah, there's a lot of beautiful sides, I think, to social media too. I do think I sort of struggle though with how to share that real side, for exactly what I said, because I'm like, how do I do it? When I'm sad, I'm like, I don't think of taking a photo of myself, and then it feels like it lacks sincerity. So it's like, I do struggle with that. I really appreciate that you're talking about this, because I do think it's really important, and I do think people just seemingly think that like our lives are perfect. We don't work hard. Everything's handed to us. It's easy, and we don't hurt.
And that is what this whole series is about, like seeing the journey that, you know, has brought you here, that you've been on. And it's not all roses, you know. Typically, like, you don't really find anyone in this world that has had a perfect life, you know, a straight line to that.
When you mentioned doing this story, I was just like really touched that your like mind would want to, like, your time, effort, energy would want to go into doing something like this, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. I think it's really important to sort of break the stigma that comes along with mental health awareness. And
people are just, I mean, I know I don't want to speak for all people, but I feel like the more people I talk to, people are over just seeing the perfectly photoshopped images and the perfect photos that are cinematic and your perfect life and all this. And it's like, those people, like, there was a quote one time, and it's like, the girl in the magazine doesn't even look like the girl in the magazine. You know, you can't compare your life to a couple squares on a screen, you know. And to be able to just crack people open a little bit and let people in, and just makes people feel like seen and heard, you know. And that's what we all want to just feel seen and heard and accepted and loved. And
it's so funny you said that. We all want to feel seen and heard. I was just talking about this. My grandfather, it's been a whirlwind of bad times, but my grandfather is turning actually 99 next month, and he's dealing with he's not doing so good right now. But I was hanging out with him recently, and my brother was like, he can't talk. He's like, he can't talk. Like, he doesn't want me to be there with him. He can't talk. He doesn't care that I'm there. I'm like, he just has I forget what it's called.
Like a little
trach. Yeah, so he can't talk. But my brother's like, I don't know if he cares that I'm there. I said, he literally wants to feel seen, and I know he can't be heard. I was like, but I'm telling you, just sit close to him. Sit close to him and like look into his eyes and be connected to him, and you will see the life come back into his face. Like, he just wants to. It's hard when he's trying to communicate and people can't hear him, and people are like, I don't know what he's saying, and then they move on. Like, it's sort of like that in life, like, right? Like, you just want to know that like someone is is seeing and hearing you. That's why I brought that up. I'm like, okay, he can't speak, but like I sit there and look at him and talk to him, and he knows. And that's like all we really want in life, is just to know that like friends are looking out, or and that we're seen and heard, like you said.
And in just like these uncomfortable moments, like a lot of us want to think like, okay, they don't want to hear my bad stuff. They don't want to hear like my grandpa's in hospice. Like you always, like I know for me, I'm like always trying to be positive and uplifting, and that's great. But more times than not, when I like crack myself open to friends or people even I've just met, like they want to hear that stuff too. They want to see and they want to hear you. And, you know, I relate with that. Like my granddad was in hospice. He had a tumor on his brain. No one wanted to talk to him because he was saying crazy stuff. He didn't know who anyone was. And in my 12-year-old brain, I was like, well, I just want him to know that I'm there. And I sat there with him for hours, and he looked directly over at me and said my name. You know, it's like we can't just write people off because they're ill or they're sick. And that just, it's what it comes down to for me, is people want to just feel seen and heard, and that makes them feel loved. And
it's so funny you even said that, because right before you just said, like, people don't want to be like, I was just sitting here and I had this like judgmental thought myself that just passed through after I just spoke, and I was like, oh God, this is sounding so negative. Like I just had this like moment of judgment for myself of like, oh, this is sounding so negative, you know. And then you just said that you're like, we're
no idea how many people are listening that are like, I felt that, or I've been with my, you know, it's like people deal with this shit, you know, more people than not. And the more we can like be vulnerable and open up about it, the more people feel seen and heard, even in their own, you know, world. Even if we're not sitting there directly with them, or we don't know these people directly listening, like they're feeling seen and heard because you're talking about this, you know. So thank you for being very vulnerable.
Like, it's just so funny. We really do have such a hard time, maybe not everyone, but I do just really struggle with like opening up. And just like, I'm always like, happy, let's like at Ty's show. I mean, Ty has a song called Leave Her Wild. Oh my God, this is like, this song is like, it's like the biggest blessing and a curse, because I feel like Jim Carrey in a way. No, to be honest, like actually, like it's like Ty writes this song and like all these like wild fun things he loves about me, and dressing up in like, I don't know, silly costumes at my girlfriend's bachelorette parties, and just like, and Ty writes this song, and women like, and it's not about like leave her wild and like get hammered, but it's about like, I mean, women's empowerment too, about like relationships. I mean, it's about many different layers to this song. I feel like Jim Carrey, because now people see me at shows.
And they're like, perform!
There she is! Let's do some shots! And like, don't get me wrong, that is very much who I am too. There is this side of me. I do love having fun and being rowdy. It's a part of my culture too, being Polish, and it's just like such a, family comes over. I mean, when I was in Poland last week with my family, we were FaceTiming my mom and dad and my aunt in the States, and I was with my aunt and uncle in Poland, and we were all like taking shots together. So it's very much, this celebratory party feel is very much a part of, it's a part of my culture and how I was raised. But definitely like, at shows sometimes I feel like
there's this expectation for you just to be like the craziest.
That's like wild. And sometimes I am, but sometimes I'm like a little tired and like just want to be like just watching Ty.
Yeah, and that's okay too.
So like even like, so that's why I was like, even in this interview I was like, all of a sudden like, oh, too negative, make it positive. And I was like, well, this is literally what this is about. It's about our vulnerability and just like opening up about.
So like in talking about, you know, you being in therapy, you being aware that you need help and have asked for help, what are some things that you incorporate in your life now, like every day, to better your well-being?
What I really struggled with for some reason was being able to, I think, like I said, there was that period where sort of I started to question like people, friends, intentions, and even myself. I was like, so I feel like one thing that's been very helpful for me, which I feel like we hear this time and time again, is journaling. Journaling for some reason really helps me navigate like how I'm feeling, or kind of like, oh, why did I feel this way, or what do I need to, like, so journaling, just even if it's a couple sentences. And I used to judge my journaling. I'm like, I didn't write enough. I didn't write enough.
I feel like I've totally done that before.
And then sometimes I judge my journaling, like, what if someone reads this? What if this gets in someone's hands? Maybe I was a little too vulnerable in this moment. I'm like, let me cross this out. But I've really just tried to be like, no, I'm going to be open and get it out there and put it out in my pages, and I think that's been really helpful. But like the thing I like about cognitive behavioral therapy is like I kind of get like homework assignments and tools that kind of help me when I start to feel a little worked up, things that I can use to, when I start to feel anxious, like, okay, this is kind of what we talked about earlier today.
Reflect on, you know, reality of the situation versus like what you may be like making up in your head. And yeah.
And also, like, I used to be way more, it used to really hurt me what people thought about me. And I used to be really like, oh, I don't know if this person likes me, or this person might be speaking badly about me. And I was really like, I wanted everyone to like me. And then I realized when I'm unkind, like when I'm unkind or speaking badly about someone, it's when I'm feeling insecure. I know that I'm unkind to others when I don't feel good about myself. And then it kind of freed me. Like, oh, well, if this person doesn't love me, they're just seeing me through their own lens of their own experiences that they've been through in life. So I think that really freed things up for me, I think, a bit.
I mean, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wrapped my mind around that concept, you know, just a couple years ago. You know, if I walk into a room and a girl's being ugly to me or I'm not feeling totally accepted, instead of me, you know, looking at myself like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like, what did I do when I know I've done nothing? It's like, oh, okay, like that's something within her. And maybe I triggered something that she's insecure about, but I can be released of that. You know, that's like such a powerful thought.
I feel like I realized that like not that long ago.
Yeah. It's a powerful thing, especially for women, because we're the most critical, you know, of other women. And I've been a victim of that too, of like, you know, like, especially when I was young, I got married really young. I was like out on the road and all these women are like throwing themselves at my husband. And I'm like, am I not pretty enough? Like, oh my gosh, does he think she's too pretty? Like, oh my gosh, like, you know, and it's like, whoa. Like, these are my insecurities. These are my feelings. I got to deal with my shit, you know, like I can't put this on my partner. You know, these are my insecurities, you know.
It's not easy.
That girl, yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
But it's like, now I feel like I can walk into the room and like, whereas when I was like 22, if I walked into the room, I'm like avoiding like the prettiest girl in the room because I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be compared. I don't want to compare myself. Yeah. And then now I walk into the room and I'm like, I love you. Like, let's talk. I want to know your story. Like, let's, you know, and it's like just disarming myself of like, and not to say I don't have those insecurities still, it's just I'm aware that isn't reality. And there's so much that we like make up in our head, like, oh, that person doesn't like me or they looked at me weird, and I have to really stop. And this is something in my therapy that I'm like, did I make that up or is that reality? Yeah. And once you can like swallow that down, that you've literally made that up in your head, it's not reality, you can kind of like free yourself from 100%. That.
No, I think that was I love that.
That's like definitely one thing I do for my well-being. At the moment those negative thoughts start to creep in, I'm like, am I making this up or is this reality? And if it's reality, then let's like actually walk through like the facts. You know?
And then if it's reality, like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Should I care? Is it a projection of their own, what they're going through?
Yeah. And if it's reality and a red flag, thank you. I will move towards the green flags, you know?
That's another thing. I feel like some things like happen lately too with like, I don't like conflict. And I don't want to be a negative, I don't want to speak negatively about people. So I think something like in my therapy too, like there was a lot of times that things where I would talk about, I'm like, with her, I'm like, this is bothering me, or this friend hurt me, or whatever. And she's like, why don't you talk about it with them? And that was like, and I was like, oh, what a weird concept.
No, that's a big one, like just going directly to the source. Like I remember I used to be like, I would much rather like vent with my other friend or vent with my partner and just and then the concept of just like, what if you just went directly to the person and then found peace? Like, how much cooler is that?
I feel like I would be like a little bit more passive aggressive. Like I'd say something and be like, ah ha ha ha, and then I'd laugh about it, and then like it would my way of addressing instead of just being an adult and addressing. So I feel like not carrying so much with me has been really helpful with my anxiety too. Just sort of like, okay, I'm just gonna ask and talk this out and figure it out, and then if the person doesn't respond well to like an honest conversation, that's like not the friend or person that you're meant to have in your life. So
and that's okay too. Yeah. We're not meant to be friends with every single person.
And I have to tell you, that was a hard concept for me. I was like, I feel like I want to be friends with everyone, and they're just not all gonna like me, and I'm not gonna like all them.
Yeah, and there's different layers of friends. Like we were talking about this too. It's like you can have friends that are in the circle of, you know, I can tell you my personal stuff. I know you're not going to run off with it and tell someone else. Like I can be vulnerable with you, and not going to walk out of the room and think, what are you going to do with that information? Like, you have those like people in your life, and then you have, you know, this little bit outer group of people that are like, you know, you have safe topics with, you have fun things you can talk about, but you don't go like too deep because maybe they're not healthy enough to even receive that information. Maybe they're not even emotionally equipped to help you with that. And that's okay, you know? You can have those different layers of friends, and that to me is like giving me a lot of peace that like, okay, not everybody like is a huge fan of Brittany, and that's so cool. You know, I'd rather have, my grandmother used to say this, but she's like, you'd rather have 4 quarters than 20 pennies. And I'm like, huh.
Love that.
Okay, you're right. I'd rather have $1 than 20 cents and have less people. You know what I mean?
Love that. Love that concept. But you said something to me earlier. Actually, I'm not, I do think this is something I do want to incorporate in my life, but you were saying something about putting your energy, divvying up your energy properly with like your relationship, your friendships, your career.
Yes. So like there's something that I practice called like the whole, your whole perspective. And it's like if you're thinking of a circle and it's like a big pizza pie, and you're thinking about, okay, every single day, every week, like what am I doing for my physical? What am I doing for my mental? What am I doing for my emotional? What am I doing for my spiritual, if you are spiritual? What am I doing for myself relationally and personally? And so you have all these, you know, topics, if you will. And every single day I wake up and I'm like, okay, what am I doing today for all of that? Even if it's 5 minutes that I sit down and listen to a podcast, or 5 minutes that I'm reading, it's like I have to touch on myself, because I was realizing that I was waking up and I was getting my physical done. I was definitely doing things for everybody else relationally, but I was like not filling up like my spiritual or like personal or emotional. And that's kind of helped me dive into those things, like even if it is a self-help book or it is like me meditating for 5 minutes, like it doesn't have to be the extreme of like, you know, okay, well, I need to be at church 7 days a week now, or I need to like, you know, it's like just little bits of filling those pieces of pie up, like have been life-changing, because it just gives you a little bit of accountability that you're not just waking up and pouring yourself out to everybody and then like not reflecting.
I think that's like, I feel like that's something I would need in my life, because I feel like I just give, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of myself today.
And it's like, if think of yourself as like a car, like if you're just sitting there just like running as hard as you can with the gas pedal down, and that gas is just burning and you're just giving that energy, you know, to like burning up the road. It's like if you never
stall out.
You never stop at the gas station and fill that car up, like you're done, you know?
No, I think I'm going to have to learn, I'm going to master this. I'm going to really have to master this. 100%.
So like with your routine and with your well-being and keeping that in check, like what do you do for like movement and activity? Like what do you like to do?
I used to take like the really intense HIIT classes and the music's on and I'm trying to keep up, and then I was like, this is like kind of not like, I realized it was like kind of anxiety inducing. It's not my kind of workout.
Were you doing those because you're obviously like a model and an actress, and I even, you know, you told me you're a fit model, which I can't imagine how much like pressure that is to like be that same size. Like, were you doing that because of that? Or like,
I feel like it's kind of the only working out that I knew, right? Yeah. It's just like what everyone did. Everyone did like these really intense workouts, and I didn't know that I can actually like small movements like Pilates and stuff. I didn't really get introduced to Pilates till you know the last several years, and I was like, oh wait, I can just do small, gentle movements and really focus, and that's like 10 times harder of a workout is what I was doing. Like those small little controlled movements on the Megaformer.
Which is so funny. And when she talks about Melissa, she's talking about Melissa Wood, who has her own program. And I got introduced to her program, I guess, like 3 years ago. And my husband and I started doing it together. And he's like, he loves weights, like he loves the HIIT, he loves the cardio. And I finally talked him into doing like a power sculpt situation.
I love this.
And he could not
it's
hardly
hard.
get through it. Yeah.
Melissa's shredded.
Yeah. I'm like,
she like asked me to work out with her. She's like, do you want to film a workout together? And she was pregnant at this time. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And she was pregnant doing the workouts, and I was like quivering, and I'm like, oh my God, this is very poor showing. Yeah, Melissa and I actually, we worked in nightlife together in New York when we were like 19. And so that's why she's like a woman who like walks the walk.
Yeah.
Lawnmower.
Phew, crank it up. We're almost done. But just like for that metaphor and going back to like, you know, these intense workouts and then these small movements, it's like that's kind of like what we were just talking about with the full perspective. It's like you don't have to wake up and blast every single part of your whole perspective.
You're very good at this. That's very true.
You know?
I feel like I want you to be my therapist.
Hey, I am studying to be a relational coach, so
These are great tips. These are great tips.
But you know, it's like what you said. It's like you finally woke up one day and you're like, actually, I can just do it a little bit and still pretty much get the same effect. And like that's kind of what it is about taking care of yourself and like your whole perspective. But I love that you do Pilates. Like I'm super into Pilates. I love yoga. Like when I do those things, I almost feel more, I don't know, like alive than like when I am just doing this intense like workout, you know?
It's fun. I'll work out with him once in a while and go to his I don't even know what we call, cross training. I don't know.
CrossFit?
I don't know. It's really intense. There's people on weights and they're moving, they're running, and then they're spinning, and then they're sprinting. I'm like, it's a lot going on. I mean, I feel good when I leave. I feel good, but I just like, I always look at him. I'm like, this is not for me. But I still go. I just like to work out with him. But the same thing actually was funny. He did Pilates. I'm like, do you want to do it with me? He's like, I'm trying to get shredded.
Yeah, he's like, this is a girly thing.
Yeah, he's like, I'm trying to get shredded. I was like, you're gonna like it. Just come with me, just for a minute. And in LA, it's like, you know how it is. It's just really hard to find parking. So I was like, you go in. You have to go early. Get your Pilates socks. I'll park. I get into class. I'm not kidding. I must have been like 3 minutes late by the time I walked in.
He's like
and he's on the machine and he's like quivering. He's like quivering and he's like sweating and he looks at me. He's like, "What is Pilates?" I'll never forget. He's like, "What is Pilates?" I'm like,
that is so
it was so funny. He's like, "I want to get ripped, Sabina. It's not for me."
So we're actually about to go visit Pilates Garage, where you like to do Pilates here in Nashville. And we're going to show everybody your moves. But first off, I just want to thank you for just like being open and being vulnerable and like
Thank you for having me. Thank you for like honestly like shining a light on this. I think it's so important and so often overlooked. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.